let's look at some mental math addition problems really quickly. Remember, the point of mental math is to kind of break numbers up mentally, sometimes writing down a little bit to make it to where you can do that mental math portion. Here's an example of doing that. If we're looking at a problem like this, typically Singapore math likes to write their problems horizontally so that you can encourage mental math, as opposed to writing them vertically where you can line up your ones, your tens, and your hundreds and do it the procedural way. This is a little bit more conceptual. So seeing this, the goal here is to usually make the next 10. It's a little bit harder to add these together the way that they are without stacking them. And this is a simpler problem because we do know that 8 plus 5 is going to be 13. But a way to do it mentally is to say that we are either going to break this number up or we're going to break this number up and turn it into the next 10. So here we go. I'm going to do it both ways for you so you can see the difference. If I'm looking at 45 and breaking it up, I want to be able to make this number into a 10, this second number into a 10. So I know right now I have 8. I need 2 more to get to a 10. So I'm going to purposely pull 10 out of 45, and what would be left would be 43. So now what I can do is I'm done with 45 because I've already broken it up into these 2 numbers on the bottom. I'm going to add these 2 numbers together, which is a 10. And now that I have my 10, I can add that 10 into 43. Well, 43 plus 10 is a lot easier to do than 45 plus 8. So 43 plus 10 is going to be 53. All right. So now let's look at it the other way, being able to break apart that 8 instead. Okay, so we're going to be able to break 8 apart. Remember, we're trying to make that next 10 or that next 100, something along those lines. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to push this 45 up to the next 10. In order to do that, I know that I need 5 more 1s to push that 45 up to 50. So I'm going to go ahead and take 8 in my number bond. I'm going to make sure that I have a 5 in one bubble, because remember I need 5 to make 45 50. And what would be left if I took 5 from that 8 would be 3. 5 plus 3 does in fact equal 8, so I can move on with my problem. As soon as I break it up into 2 different legs in my number bond, I like to cross off my original number so that I know that I don't need to use it again. So now, looking at this, I can move on. 45 plus 5, I already know is 50. That's really quick for me to do because I know that 5 plus 5 is going to be 10, and that would be 50. 50 plus whatever is remaining is going to be 3. Again, we're left with 53. All right. So now let's look at this again, look at one that's a little bit different. Say, for instance, we're going to be looking at something that's really similar would be $345 plus 8. All right, so here we go again. Another time where we can decide how we want to break it up. Sometimes you're breaking up that first number, sometimes you're breaking up the second number, whichever one works best for the mind of the student that's doing the work. And sometimes there are problems that it makes more sense to break up one as opposed to the other. And in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and break up this number because I want to try to make this 8 into a 10. So it's the same style thing here. I know that if I take 2 from 345, I'm going to be left with 343. Why am I choosing 2? I'm choosing 2 because I want to make sure that I can make a 10 using that 8 over there on the side. So knowing that, I've already used 345 because I've broken it up between these 2 bubbles down here. And I can go ahead and add mental math-wise. 8 and 2 is a 10. Now I know that the only number that's going to change if I'm adding just a plain 10 here is going to be the number that's in the tens place. 300 plus 110 is going to be 53. Okay, so that's how we're going to do that. You can do the same exact thing with larger numbers. For instance, if you were looking at something along the lines of 4,500 plus 800, you could see that same style of adding and subtracting like that. So let us look for another one. Give me one quick second to find you another one. All right. Another strategy here, say we're looking at a number like 456 and we're adding 95. Forgive my terrible handwriting. I'm adding 95 to here. Now, I have a few options. I could try to break this apart. Normally when the numbers are so close to 95, to 100, you're going to want to go ahead and pretend that that's 100. Well, how do I get to 100 here? 100 would be adding 5, okay? So knowing that, if I add 5 to this, I'm going to end up with 100, okay? So I'm going to rewrite my problem like that. And here we go. Think about having a jar of Skittles and someone is giving you 95 Skittles, to adding it to your jar of 456 Skittles. Now, if they give you 100 Skittles, they haven't given you 95. They've given you too many, more than 95. So what that means is they're going to end up taking back some of those Skittles to make sure that they actually give you the correct amount of 95. So looking here really quick, 456, they gave you 100 more of those Skittles. That means the only number it's going to change is that number in the hundreds place. That means you're going to end up with 5 instead of 456. Now, looking here, if we go back, we can say, wait a minute though, they were supposed to give us 95 Skittles, but they gave us 100. Well, how many more Skittles did they give us than we needed? They gave us 5 more. Well, instead of keeping those 5, we would, with great honesty and sometimes even reluctantly, if it's your favorite candy, go ahead and give them back those 5, which means that you can take 5 back or give 5 away from what your answer was when you added 100. This one does tend to be a little easier because we're looking at this ones place, only removing 5 of those. It is not affecting the tens place at all. It's only affecting that one particular place value. So 556 minus 5 is going to be 6 minus 5 is 1. So 551 is the way that you would do something like that. So adding more than you should, because we were trying to get a number that we could mentally add really quickly, and then subtracting the extras, basically, from what we had added in. Now, we can see that that would be super beneficial the majority of the time. Now, let's look at one that's a little bit easier than that, just to make it a little bit easier. Something, for instance, like 46 plus 18. All right, so this I'm going to push up to 20. It just seems easier to me. If I'm going to make it a 20, I need to realize that I am adding in 2 extras. The difference here between these two is going to be 2. 46 plus 20. Now, the tens is the only thing that's changing here. 4 plus 2 is going to be 6. That's 6 tens. 4 tens plus 2 tens is 6 tens. And we have a 6 in the ones place. Now, go back to what we were looking at previously, where instead of adding 18, we added more than we should. If you've been given more than you need, we need to subtract to have less, which means we have to find the difference between these two numbers, and we did. That's why we wrote it over here on the right. We're going to go ahead and subtract the extras, and this quick mental math you can do. Remember, there is a way to make this look easier for a child, is to cover up that tens place, and in doing so, it looks like 6 minus 2. Well, that's going to be your ones place. 66 minus 2 is going to be 64. Another way to do that is to count backwards on a number line. 66, 65, 64. We've jumped 2 times in order to get to our answer. Jumped backwards 2 times, by the way. Hopefully that's helpful.